What is up, everybody?
Guys? How's it going?
I thought I was going to do it.
Yeah, we didn't discuss who was doing what
All right.
at the beginning. So,
You're right.
And then I was dancing during the intro music or whatever.
Which is usually the cue that you give that you're not expecting to talk.
That's always the cue I give when I'm expecting to talk. I don't know what you mean. It's your boys. Back at it again. We are starting this new episode, which is a part. We have part 1 on our notes, but this is part 2, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Technically, it's a continuation. Yeah.
Technically, wow. Woo. Yeah. But this should be fun, right? We're
Yeah.
all jazzed up. I just had a cup of coffee. I'm kidding.
No, you didn't.
I don't drink caffeine.
He's a Mormon.
Yeah. Yeah, I have my brother Jedediah, and then I have my other brother Jebediah, and then Josiah, Jeremiah,
Jechariah.
and
Rowan.
Josh, and then Brittany. And then Tequavion.
Oh, also, we started this debate. Was it wheels or doors? Was it wheels and doors? Somebody corrected us and said that it should have been windows or doors. And sure,
That's stupid.
most people ended up with wheels.
Yeah, because it's the correct answer.
Yeah, I think I was swayed in one direction, and then you said how many. We clarified that it had to be functional, right? So like, you can't just like Hot Wheels. Yeah, Hot Wheels doors don't count, but their wheels do because they get the cars move.
Yeah.
Right, and
then you got Legos making like $4 billion.
I thought you said it was Hot Wheels that makes like $4 billion.
Yeah, both of them, dog. And then UPS has like 400 million wheels in like one facility. It's crazy, dog. It's crazy, absolutely crazy. It's a wheel driven world out there. It's been like that since the Stone Ages.
And you know what? The wheels on the bus go round and round. The doors on the bus. Nobody made a song about that.
Yeah.
Although, does it end up in the song at some point? The doors on the bus go open and shut. They do. Wow. They each got their own verse.
I've never been on a bus.
1-1 to the wheelage to door thing when it comes to song lyrics.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's why wheels are superior.
No, I just said it's 1-1. The wheels on the bus and the doors on the bus. The wheels on the bus go round and round. The doors on the bus go open and shut.
How many doors are on a bus? 2.
Do French doors count? This is 2, but if you get on a public bus, no, we're taking way too much time with this already.
All right. So today we're gonna continue with the attributes of God, and we're starting off with a few more. If you remember from the last episode, we categorize attributes of God in 2 different ways. One are incommunicable. Correct me if I'm wrong, Felipe, on the pronunciation of some of these words. They're either incommunicable, which means they apply only to God and are completely unachievable by us in any measure. And then you have communicable attributes of God, which God is obviously the supreme example of those attributes, but but he allows us to have a very, very, very small fraction of these attributes in ourselves. So we're going to go over a few incommunicable attributes, and then we're going to move on to some more communicable attributes and just talk about what that means for us and how they can be applied to our life. Before we do that, quick works cited, whatever, so that we're not plagiarizing. A lot of the work and research done for these episodes comes from Wayne Grudem's systematic theology, as well as the Bible. Yeah. And Yeah. So if you want to look at maybe some more in-depth an in-depth look at what we're talking about, or even if you want to just see where we got our information, Wayne Grudem's Systematic Theology. So, Felipe.
Yep.
Where did we leave off?
Yeah, so 2 weeks ago, we covered 4 incommunicable attributes of God, right? God is fully independent. He is self-existing and in himself completely satisfied in every way. God is immutable, meaning he does not change, which is what makes him trustworthy. God is eternal. He has no beginning and no end. And then God is omnipresent, and God is not limited to space and time. God is everywhere at once, but then also chooses to manifest his presence differently at different times. So continuing that trend, we're going to talk about a few attributes, again, that belong only to God, right? So I'm going to clarify that a little bit, right? Like, although we are also independent, I feel like I should, after reading that, I was like, I should clarify. Although we are also independent, right? Like, we need food, we need water, we need shelter, we need each other, we need parents, right? Like, God is self-existing in everything that he does. Like, he's not sitting up there like, man, I really need to go find a tree from which to get food from, to which to be fed. I really need, like, somebody to take care of me. Like, that's not how God operates. God is not sitting up there just waiting for other things to be able to tend to him. God is, right? God is fully independent in a way that we will never be. With that being said, God is also omnipotent, meaning God is all powerful. A few verses for this. We're going to look at Job 11, verses 7 through 11. Job says this: "Can you fathom the mysteries of God? Can you probe the limits of the Almighty? They are higher than the heavens above. What can you do? They are deeper than the depths below. What can you know? Their measure is longer than the earth and wider than the sea. If he comes along and confines you in prison and convenes a court, who can oppose him? Surely he recognizes deceivers, and when he sees evil, does he not take note?" God is all powerful. He does anything that he wants.
Yeah.
However, Rowan, he never does anything that is outside of his nature. So anything that he wants to do, he can do, but he never does anything outside of his nature, meaning who he is. So after we're done talking about all of these attributes of God, both the communicable and incommunicable, we're going to look at the Bible and realize that God never acts outside of who he is, right? Like, his decisions, his character, they're all based on this idea of who he is, and he is true to himself. Also, anything that he plans happens.
Yeah. I think a lot of Job is applicable in this category, right? Because I think you were talking about it a week or two ago, where it's just that one chapter in Job where Job is lamenting to God about all of the wrong he thinks God has done to him, and God responds with, like, where were you when I formed the mountains? Where were you when, like, I created the sea and the skies and the plants and the animals and all that stuff? And it really gives you a perspective of, like, who God is, if you can even say that. Because, like, we're so minuscule when it comes to, like, the cosmos, right? But God is infinite in his knowledge and infinite in his power. And so, like, when you contextualize it, I think Job does a good job of, or it's recorded in Job, but it does a really good job of giving you an idea of who God is when it comes to, like, his power and what he can really do. And I think it also speaks to his character, that just because he doesn't do whatever he wants, he still works for our good. He still loves us, right?
You mean he does do whatever he wants?
What did I say?
He said just because God doesn't do whatever he wants.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, I misspoke. But, like, God can do whatever he wants, and yet he still loves us, right? He could wipe us off of the face of the earth, right? Destroy earth, create a new one, without sin, and just completely get rid of sin right here, right now. But because he loves us, he has this plan, and he's willing to allow us to be redeemed and all that stuff. So super cool.
Yeah. Number 2, God is omniscient. God is all-knowing. Isaiah 46, verses 9 through 10. Remember the former things, those of long ago. I am God, and there is no other. I am God, and there is none like me. I make known the end from the beginning, from ancient times, what is still to come. I say my purpose will stand, and I will do all that I please. So kind of combining the omniscient and the omnipotent there. God is all-knowing, and God is all-powerful. He knows the beginning from the end, and he knows the end from the beginning. Um, because God is everywhere at all times, he knows all things, right? And since all life and all of creation flows from God, God knows all about them. Like, there's nothing that God doesn't know about. Like, for example, we still, like, we marvel at nature, and we figure, oh, how does this animal do that? How does this happen? How does, whatever. And God just like, I know how that happens because I made it do that. Right? Like, God knows everything.
Yeah.
That's good. A.W. Tozer, who's a really good author and theologian, he wrote this: God perfectly knows himself, and being the source and author of all things, it follows that he knows all that can be known. And this he knows instantly and with a fullness of perfection that includes every possible item of knowledge concerning everything that exists or could have existed anywhere in the universe at any time in the past, or that may exist in the centuries or ages yet unborn. God is all-knowing.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good, because a little later we're going to talk about God's wisdom, which is really important when talking about the attributes of God, obviously. And we give a little, we're going to get into a little bit more and just give you some context and like what does wisdom really mean. But before that, as kind of like a preamble, it should be comforting to know that God is all knowing, right? That God knows the beginning, the end, and everything in between, right? And I think, especially when we talk about like wisdom coming up here, like you want knowledge to back up what you're doing, right? And so keeping in the back of your head that like God knows everything. Nothing surprises God.
Yeah.
That we'll never blindside God with what we do or what we say or anything like that. So like there's some comfort in that, Next.
Oh, okay.
Unless you have something else.
No, I didn't. That was good. All right. Number 3, God is eternal. God has no beginning, end, or succession of moments in his own being. He sees all time equally vividly. Yet God sees events in time and acts in time. And I think we need to understand that part. So before we go any further, God sees the beginning from the end, like we said before, right? And he sees all time equally vividly, meaning 2,000 years ago is as fresh in God's mind as today is, and is as fresh as 2,000 mind, or as fresh in his mind as 2,000 years from now. Like, it's all the same to him. But like it says here at the end, God sees events in time and acts in time. So meaning God didn't preordain the splitting of the Red Sea. He was there when it happened, right? Like, God didn't like set up a moment in time for Jesus to show up. Sorry, this is about to sound borderline crazy, but hear me out in the whole context, right? Like, Jesus wasn't like just a fill-in for God at some random point in time. Like, God showed up in time, right? Like, so there are moments that although God exists throughout all of time, he intervenes in time. So Jesus was actually here, right? When God parted the Red Sea, he was actually there. He didn't just, like hit play on the VHS back in the day or whatever they had in biblical times. Like, he showed up.
Tablets.
Yeah, on his Kindle. I know that's not what you meant by tablets, but
no, right. It was a play on words because we have tablets.
And then the 10 tablets?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tablets of stone or whatever.
David talks a lot about this portion of God, and if you read through the Psalms, we're going to look at just one of them right now. But Psalm 90, verse 2: Before the mountains were brought forth, or before he had ever formed the earth and the world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. That's David declaring the majesty of God. And then Jesus, again, we brought this verse up before. One of the most gangster things Jesus ever said, John chapter 8, verse 58, before Abraham was, I am, right? And even how God introduces himself is like just a constant state of being. He is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So with that, we kind of wrap up some of God's incommunicable attributes. So what?
Well, I was going to leave those two for you to talk about.
Oh. My bad. Bro, these are a lot of words. Want to just take these?
Sure. So I'll finish this off. So we will only ever experience time in its present form, right? Like I will never know tomorrow until I'm at tomorrow. God sees all of time at once. And David says it like this: a day to the Lord is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is like a day. And then also, like we talked about before, God will intervene in present time to bring about his will, to bring blessing, to bring punishment, to pronounce judgment. Like God intervenes in present time. So although God exists outside of time and God is eternal, always has been, always will be, always is, God shows up in present time when necessary.
Yeah, that's good. But what I was gonna say before, that was some good input. But with all of this, right, we talk about God's eternity, his omniscience, his omnipotence. What's the point? How do we use this in our practical life? Because I feel like this is all like good knowledge, but without practical application, it really doesn't go anywhere, right? If this doesn't change who we are, and it doesn't change ourselves to grow closer to God, then like what's the point of learning this stuff if the end goal is to look more like Jesus, to look more like God, you know? So Felipe, what would you say?
I think as we, as we grow in our faith and as we grow in our walk with God, it's foolish of us to stay at what we learned 20 years ago or 10 years ago or 5 years ago. Like we should constantly be growing in our knowing of God. Right. And so that's why this series of episode is just called Theology, knowing God, because there are attributes and there are things of God that are important for us to know. Right. Like again, like we always use this relatable experience. If I only know Rowan as much as I did when I first met him 13 years ago. Oh crap. No, you were 13 when I met you. However long ago that was.
I think 4 years.
4 years ago. Then I've done a really bad job at calling myself Rowan's friend. Or like I've done a really bad job of saying that I know Rowan because we're still at the same spot that we were 3 years ago. I think still that his favorite color is red when in fact he changed it 2 weeks after he met me and said that it was purple, and I know that now.
It's always been purple.
He's a liar. And so, like we as we grow and we mature in our faith, we should be growing and maturing in our knowledge of God, right? So like this is also stuff that we talked about in one of our episodes where we talked about doing the work, right? Like of growing in our faith. If we want to grow in our faith, we have to do the work. So not only should we be buying books from people that are way smarter than us, but like, like an episode like this is really good for you to grow in your foundational understanding and then get a little bit of these topics that we're talking about, get a little bit of these attributes, write them down, and then dig deeper into them. Okay, so where else in the Bible does it talk about this? Where else in the Bible does it say, like, how do I reconcile that with what I know to be true about God? So for example, in we're talking about how God is eternal, right? Well, if God was with you and God was good when you were going through the best times of your life, then that does not change who God is when you're going through the worst times of your life. Right? Like when God is all powerful to bring you through the storm, God is all powerful to keep you, like wherever he wants you, right? Like when God is um omniscient and he knows all things, and he knew what he was doing at this point in your life, then he knows what you're doing at this next point in your life when everything seems uncertain, right? Like we translate this knowledge and understanding of our God to grow our faith in God, right? So as we face trials, as we face temptations, if we have a solid understanding of who God is, it helps us to reconcile the things going on around us, to say like, well, I can be confident that my God is not leaving me. I can be confident that my God is good. I can be confident because he's eternal, because he's immutable, because he doesn't change, because he knows everything, because he's working all things out for his good and his glory and his purpose, right? Like, so my life is going to be okay because I have this God who does not change, right?
That's good. Yeah, that's really good. For me personally, it also studying this kind of stuff, and even though these are like incommunicable, right? So it's not like we can ever try to achieve God's eternity. It's still important to learn about these and really dig deep into these, because and this is what this series is called, knowing God, right? Because it's important that we know God, right? Exactly like Felipe just said, like we need to, like if I never took the time to get to know Felipe, then we wouldn't be friends, we wouldn't have a relationship together. And so like we need to have a relationship with God. And so in order to do that, we need to have like, cuz God also isn't just our friend, right? He's way more than that. And like even more so than like a father or something like that.
Yeah.
Even though he calls us his father and stuff like that. But yeah, sure. Um But like we also need to have the proper amount of respect. And in order to have the proper amount of respect, we need to know why, right? So we need to know like, well, who cares about God, right? He's just another guy. When it's like, no, he's all knowing, he's all powerful, he's all like he's eternal, he's there from the beginning. And so now that makes us take a step back and be like, dang, okay, so this dude is pretty serious. I'm going to start taking him more seriously, you know? And so like learning about this stuff, getting to know God and getting to know like the attributes of God really helps you to like have a greater respect and greater understanding of who God is, so that you can worship him more fully, so that when you go to your church or whatever and you're worshiping, all glory be to Christ, right? Excuse me.
Yeah.
And like you actually mean those words. When you understand Jesus is all powerful, Jesus is eternal, Jesus is God, Jesus is my savior, then you actually mean those words that say all glory be to Christ. And
Yeah.
I think that's a huge application that I think is very easy to miss.
That's good. And then not only that, I think when uh, we've said this a few times on our show before, right thinking leads to right believing, right? So like doing the hard work of knowing all of these things that seem like, why would you take the time to do all this study? Is right thinking leads to right believing. If you believe the wrong things about God, then you're worshiping a God that isn't the God of the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And before we transition here, and we're going to talk about the communicable attributes of God, it's important that you understand that these attributes aren't just a part of God, right? As in, like, um, God is not like part eternal and part all powerful and part all this. Like that is just who God is. And some of the communicable attributes, like things that we share, God isn't kind of knowledge and kind of wisdom and kind of this and kind of like God is all those things. Um, it like like and what am I trying to say here? Like to bring about a fuller picture, right? Like I don't just describe Rowan one way. Like Rowan is this and so much more, right? Like Rowan is funny and serious. Like Rowan is, like he's uh a fencer, but he's also
A basketball player.
I'd be lying if I said that. Guy, he's also a movie critic. Like
Mm.
Why are you interjecting with random?
Because you need to get things right. Anyway, no, go ahead.
Yeah.
You're making a good
So like God is both love and justice at the same time. God is both merciful and vengeance at the same time, just like Batman. But they bring about a fuller picture of who God is, and they are who God is. These attributes.
Yeah. So,
hey, we have a really cool opportunity that we're doing in a few months.
Happens in May.
Yeah, let's learn about it real quick. Hey, everyone. So Ron and I have a really exciting opportunity that we want to share with you. In May, we are going down to Florida to vacation. Just kidding. We're going to go down, and we have the opportunity to support this really incredible ministry called Heart of the Bride. They are doing a mud run in the middle of the Panhandle. What? It's probably the biggest event of the year.
It's going to be awesome.
For Southern Alabama. This race that we're going to help volunteer at and run is to help raise money for this organization as they help support orphans throughout the world. One of my good friends runs it. Ron and I are already training. We've been laying off the Twinkies for the past 2 days.
For the past 2 days. That's as far as we're going to go.
It's true. I've actually been laying off Twinkies for a while. Anyway, this is going to be a really long commercial, but I have Mike Anderson here, who actually helps run the thing. He's the guy that also builds most of the obstacles himself with his bare hands. Mike, can you tell us more about what we're doing and how actually our viewers can help be there and help you guys out, even if they can't run the race with us?
Yeah, so first off, a little bit about the race. By the way, if you want to find out more, you can go to emeraldcoastmudrun.com. So emeraldcoastmudrun.com, that will give you more information about the race. But essentially, we offer a 10K competitive, a 5K fun run, a 1 mile kids run, and a night run where you run in with a headlamp and we light up the course called Zero Dark Dirty. We have 18 plus obstacles, 3 mud pits, and we get money to do good. So 100% of the proceeds will go to support orphan and at-risk children around the world. We're in 5 different countries. We can really only talk about 4 countries where we are actively supporting orphans, about 500 orphans that we care for. But also locally here in the U.S., we do adoption aid grants for families looking to adopt, because that can be very expensive. And then also right in our county here in Florida and Okaloosa County, we're heavily involved in the foster care system through court care portal. So anyways, so that's a little bit about it. This is our 10th year putting on the mud. We will have thousands of runners. Last year we had close to, I think 300 registered runners, 400 volunteers. And last year we raised almost $90,000. So
wow,
our goal this year is to try to get $90,000 for orphans. The organization that the Mud Run supports is called Heart of the Bride. A lot of times people think we're in the wedding business, but we're not. But if you find out more about Heart of the Bride, you can go to heartofthebride.org. It's heartofthebride.org, and you can find out more specifically the countries that we're involved in. Some are with orphanages that we have, some is schools, and then also the work that we do locally, like more specifically. And there's other ways to get involved besides the Mud Run. The Mud Run was a quick, practical way for us to take our reach and go wide into the community, right? So everybody can be a part of supporting orphan care, right? Maybe you can't on a mission trip, or maybe you're not able to sponsor a child monthly and all support, but you can say, hey, I'll get together with some friends and challenge them and up for this event and have a blast doing it, but also helping us raise money for orphan care. So any other questions you have specifically?
Yes. So because I know you well, there is one way that you can sign up, even if you're not able to do the race, even if you're not able to give. And it has to do with just swiping your debit card or credit card. Really quick, Mike, can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so we have lots of ways to get involved, but a very easy, practical way is just donating your change. And in our modern day today, very few actually carry change with them. So this is just an updated version. You can donate your change. If you text the word kids change, all one word, kids change, to 26989. So text the word kids change to 26989. That will send you a link. And what you can do is you can register on this link, and you essentially register your debit card or a credit card. And it takes about 5 minutes to register it. It's secure. I've been doing it now for 2 years. You'll be able to round up your change. So, for example, if you go to the grocery store and you go to buy groceries and it comes out to, I don't know, $59.85, right? It's automatically going to round that up to $60, and then they'll donate the 15 cents to Heart of the Bride. So it's really cool. You don't have to think twice. In fact, it's actually easier for you to budget, because every time you use your card, just round it up to that dollar. So you don't have to worry about, oh, I've got to, down to the cent. It's like, no, you just round it up to the next, and you know that change is getting donated to Heart of the Bride. It takes 5 minutes to set. It's secure. You can also set a limit. So if you want to only donate for the $15 or $20, you can set your maximum donation to that $15 or $20. Every time you swipe your card, whether it's getting gas, food, grocery, whatever it is, right? It'll round up. It hits that $15 or whatever that limit you set. It'll stop, and then it just kind of resets itself for the next month. So it's a great way for you to help orphans and at-risk children, but you don't necessarily have it to sponsoring a child, which can be $50, or even coming down and running the mud run, right, which may be difficult. But you're like, hey, yeah, I want to donate my change and help orphans and at risk. Man, we would love to have you support us in that area. Again, it's the word kids change at 2689.
Sweet.
That's
well,
awesome.
We are very excited to go down and run this race. I need to start stretching now because the way my legs are set up, they're always tight. But May 21st is race day. And until then, we are going to plug this on every episode so that you can help. It's not about us, really. We want to do the best that we can to help support this wonderful organization, all the work that we're doing. If you want to come race with us, we're not buying tickets for anybody, but you can meet us there. Or you can help organically wherever you're at, just like Mike said. So you have multiple ways. heartofthebride.org.com, heartofthebride.org, emeraldcoastmudrun.com, and you can text kids change to 26989.
2689. The words change, all one word.
2689. I'll get it.
We'll have all of these things in the description as well.
Sweet.
So you don't have to remember it.
All right, Mike, we'll see you down at the Mud Run, and now back to the episode.
I can't wait to see you guys. Thanks for the support.
Of course. All right, and we're back. So, Rowan, let's talk about the communicable attributes of God.
Right into it.
Like we said before, these are attributes which God has chosen to share with us.
Yes. All right. Oh.
I was going to say, I was just going to clarify, and then I was going to let you go off. While we share these attributes, they are still better in God. They are more complete in God. However, our goal through the work of sanctification and the power of the Holy Spirit is to make these attributes in our lives look more like Jesus, right? So although we love better when we've been sanctified in the Holy Spirit, right? Like when we seek knowledge, right? Like our knowledge is made more complete when we do so through the Holy Spirit. But let's get into this. Rowan.
Okay, so the first attribute is knowledge, right? We talked a little bit about God's omniscience. This is a little different. This is just knowledge, right? And obviously, we have the capability to know things, right? We can know science, English, math, Spanish, all that.
That is not one of the communicable attributes that God gave to me, was math. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. If there's an X in there, nah. I'm actually good.
I don't do good with X's.
So, anyway, so Hey, we finally found a use for that.
How's it going?
That was a good one. All right. So, we obviously have the ability to know, right? And my perspective here is coming from a slightly different angle, right? Because although we have the power to know, right, we have the power of knowledge that is available to us, we can find rest in the level of awareness that God has, right? Because he has a supreme knowledge of all of eternity, right? We talked about how God is eternal, right? But we don't have to carry that burden, right? Our incomplete knowledge of the universe, that's a good thing, right? But we can still glorify God through our own knowledge. And what I mean by that is, like, if you have, I'm extremely sorry for you, but if you have an extreme passion for math or for science or something like that, where you just love discovery, that is a God-given gift, because God has given us the attribute of knowledge. And if you love to seek that out, then, like, you are glorifying God by discovering his creation. And so I just want, like, I think a lot of people think of worship as singing songs and stuff, which it absolutely is. But it can be, if, like, your work doesn't become your idol, if you thoroughly, passionately enjoy discovering God's creation and using it to spread the gospel, like, that is absolutely a form of worship. Just completely and utterly admiring all of God's work and all of his handiwork to, like, the microscopic level, as some of these scientists do, like, that is absolutely glorifying to God. And so, like, we can use our knowledge to further glorify him. And to speak to people my age or people who are still in school, like, when we fully dedicate ourselves to, like, our homework and really make an effort to be, like, I'm not saying you have to be the best or you're not Christian, right? Because obviously that's not true. I'm not the best at my school, but, like, to, like, work towards your school, thinking about it as, like, working towards your school so that you can glorify God with what you're learning, right? If that helps. Because, like, when you're in chemistry and you're learning about all of, like, the little details that go into, like, even the simplest chemical reaction, that's still everything that God's put in place. And so when we take time to admire that, even at my age, like, we're cultivating an appreciation for the thought and design that goes behind even, like, the smallest of things in God's creation, and we can use that to further glorify him. And I think that's really cool, and I think that's really missed by a lot of people. Because they're stupid.
Yeah. And let's look at a few verses here. Write them down if you want, or listen back. Job 37, verse 16. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to give a quick summary of what it says. So Job 37, verse 16. He is perfect in knowledge. 1 John chapter 3, verse 20. God knows everything. Hebrews 4:13. Nothing is hidden from his sight, right? Like we talked about how because all life flows from God and all of creation flows from God, then there's nothing that he doesn't know about it. Matthew 6:8. God knows all of our needs. Psalm 139, verses 2, 4, and 16. God knows all of our ways. God just knows all things, and we can attain knowledge. We can go to school, we can learn things, but our knowledge is still less complete. Number 2, Rowan, what do we got?
Number 2, we have wisdom, which I talked about a little bit before when we were talking about knowledge. So knowledge kind of backs up wisdom, because when we talk about wisdom here, all it means is, and when we're talking about God's wisdom here, not our own, but God's wisdom just means that God always chooses the best goals and the best means to those goals, right? So God has his will, and he knows it, right? And it's the best possible outcome for everybody involved, and he knows the best way to get to that outcome. And so sometimes, like, when life is especially a poopy, it can be hard to like accept that. Like, really, there was no better way for God to do this than to, like, do X, Y, or Z. And this is where that knowledge comes in, because when we understand and when we accept the fact that God is all-knowing and he has all knowledge of the past, present, and future, then it really like it backs up the fact that like God truly is like he can only be the wisest person ever, right? Like he truly knows the best way to achieve his goals, right? And so we can rely on him for the ultimate wisdom, because I feel like it would be foolish for us if God is truly all-knowing and therefore like has the greatest amount of wisdom any man, or far beyond what any man could ever achieve. Then it would be foolish for us to not lean on him for wisdom, right? Because even though we can have goals and we can figure out the best way to achieve those goals, it will never be as good as what God has in store for us.
Yeah, and a few Bible verses for you there. Romans 16:27, he is known as the only wise God. Job 9:4, he is wise in heart. Psalm 104, verse 24, God's works are infinite, and in his wisdom, he has done everything. 1 Corinthians 1, verses 24 through 30, Christ is the wisdom of God. Ephesians chapter 3, verse 20, God does more than we can ask or think. And then to end it, Romans 8:28, God works all things for his good. Again, wisdom is complete in God. And like we can be wise, we can attain wisdom through trial and error, through books, through media, through whatever, like through conversation, through friendships, through whatever. God's wisdom is still better than ours because God always chooses the best goals. Sometimes even in our wisdom, we still come up short.
Yeah.
Right. But we are able to be wise just as God is wise.
That's good.
I mean, a little bit less than as God is wise, but you know what I meant. You know what I meant. You know what I meant.
Sure.
And on that note, Rowan,
it is time to end. Our time has come. So if you like what you hear and you want to stick around for more, which you should, because we have more parts, right?
We have so many more parts.
We have at least one more part to this series.
At least one, if not three, honestly, looking at our notes.
Yeah. So if you like what you hear, or if you are like, they're annoying, but I kind of want to hear more, consider subscribing. Like it wherever you're at, if you're on YouTube or something like that. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts.
And most importantly, share us.
Oh, yeah, that is the best way.
Share us all over the place, honestly. Pass us around like a hand sanitizer at a COVID fest. You know what I'm saying? I don't know why I went there, but I did. Hey, listen.
Go ahead. No.
I was going to say, we love you guys. Have an awesome week.
Peace out.
What was that for?
I got to blow the kiss to him.